you've been watching for a while, you might remember this little mess up. I did not read all the way through the description of the product when I bought the decoder, and I bought an EMD sound decoder and not a GE sound decoder. Well, I've got a new decoder in that's right for the locomotive, and I got a question from a viewer about using JMRI for sound decoders, and I thought that this was the perfect opportunity to show you guys. The thing with decoders is most of them are all different depending on the manufacturer, and this is especially true of sound decoders. Most manufacturers have different ways of getting sounds changed and on and off of decoders and things like that. Now, my personal favorite is soundtracks. They are some of the easiest ones to program out there, and that's what I'm going to do. I've got a Soundtrack Tsunami 2 that is going in this locomotive. Let's get started. We are in JMRI's Decoder Pro, and what we need to do is we need to add this locomotive to our roster. So the first thing we're going to do is we are going to go New Loco, and we're going to read the type from the decoder. And you can see that we get our Next 18 GE Diesel's decoder, and we have everything here, and it's set to the default of 3. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to change the address. We're going to use a long address, and this locomotive's number is 3675, so we're going to do 3675, and we're going to write that. Then we're going to add the title. I'm just going to call it NS 3675. We're going to save it, and now it's on our roster, and now we can open the comprehensive programmer. So here's the screen we come to, and I've done a few things with these locomotives before. So we got the basics first of all. We can make sure those are good. Everything is good there. We're going to be using our 128 step speed steps. I'm going to leave it digital only for now. Normal locomotive direction, everything. So let's go ahead and we'll look through the motor. The main thing you'll probably look at here, these are some really deep in the weeds type of stuff here, but the main thing you'll probably look at is the acceleration rate and the deceleration rate. And the acceleration rate, if it's 0, is pretty much going to start and go full blast as soon as you start it and move with the throttle. If it's at 255, which is the max, it's going to take several minutes to get to full speed, just like realism, and the deceleration rate is the same. Now, for the most part, I use the basic speed control tab for locomotives like this when I'm consisting, and I know for a fact that I need to have this one set about 255 to its max, and then 128 for its mid, and then 10 for its start. And then we'll go ahead and write that sheet. And now that information is on the locomotive. If you're going to get into some more detailed speed matching, you can also use this. This is the speed table for all of the speed steps. And you basically just adjust these as you go, and you can do different things like you have the constant ratio curve, you can have a log curve, you can shift it, things like that. And then if you just want to go straight, you can also force it straight like this. So here is where you have a bunch of different functions mapped to all of these different things. We have reverse whistle, we have forward whistle, we have stop whistle, all of these different things. Now, one thing I know is that I'm not going to be using FX5 and FX6. FX3 and FX4 on this locomotive are the ditch lights, which I'm going to program here in a minute. But what we're going to do with FX5 and FX6 is we're going to disable them. And for a forward whistle, I'm going to make that 26 and make that 27. So now those will go for that. And I'll go ahead and write that sheet. One thing to note is that I am doing soundtracks, and every decoder is slightly different, but this is just the general gist of it. Next up, we have our lights. Now, I know for a fact that FX3 and FX4 are the individual ditch lights. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to set FX3. You can scroll down to where it says type 1 ditch light. I'm going to turn on its crossing logic so it'll flash when the crossing signal is done. And then I'm going to use phase A for it, and then I'm also going to say that it's an LED. Then for FX4, I need to turn on that ditch light as well.
And then I'm going to use the phase B so it alternates. And turn on the grade crossing logic and set it for LED as well. If you had more lights you could work, you could also set them with connected to FX5 and FX6. But if you remember, we have already delegated the controls for FX5 and FX6 to another function. So we'll go ahead and write this sheet. Not going to worry too much about analog controls right now. If you were doing a consist, you could give it a consist address. I do my consisting with the engine driver app, so I don't really use this that much. But if you're building a permanent consist, this is a really great thing to use, where you can give it a consist address, and you can also have it where like certain functions respond to the locomotive only, and some respond to the consist address as well. So let's say you have a consist that you have made with a couple of sound locomotives, and you only need one of them to be the horn and the bell. You could have those, say for F1, you could say respond to consist, and things like that. Or I could go right here, respond to consist. And that's what it would do. So I'm not going to write that to my sheet because, like I said, I typically do things in engine driver rather than here. But if you're doing a permanent consist, this is where you can adjust the functions for that. And you just got to know which function is which. So the CV lock is something that you can have put in place. Like let's say you go to a club or a place where a bunch of locomotives are going to be running and you don't want to accidentally reprogram your locomotive. This is where you could lock your locomotive so that it does not program. Okay, now we have the fun part, which is the sounds. Let's take a look, see here, and see what I want to adjust. The main things I want to adjust are the air horn and the bell. So I did a little bit of research and figured out which bell's which. The best I can tell is that the Norfolk Southern uses the K5LA. And then I'm also going to put that for the auxiliary horn. And then for the bell, I'm just going to set it to the, there's a GE setting, GE FDL medium fast. And I'm also going to enable the crossing bell, so this will automatically turn on the bell when I do the crossing signal, which on a Soundtracks decoder is F9. You can also have the engine auto start right here, which is automatically enabled, but you can disable that. Let's say I have a bunch of locomotives and you don't want them all doing a startup sound at the same time as soon as you power on a layout. So you would disable this sound and you would just manually do it. So let's go ahead, I'm actually going to go ahead and disable that feature. And now we can write this full sheet. Now these are all your individual sound features. So I'm actually going to turn down the prime mover a little bit. Turn up the air horn and the bell, and then write the changes on the sheet. Oh, that has toilet flush volume. That's great. That just shows you how much realism they go into here. Now you can also go in and change your raw CVs, just like if you were doing it with a regular controller as well, if you're more comfortable that way too. And you have all of your CVs listed right here in numerical order, and you can do that. A few other things you have here, you have an alternate mixer function for the audio and the sound. You also have an equalizer for the different frequencies. I'm not going to mess with this too much. We don't have a powerful enough speaker to really tell any difference. But if you had the Soundtracks system for their surround sound, you could absolutely use that. Got all these digital exhaust controls, things like that. Just a lot of different features that you can really go in the weeds and customize. We got reverb, all these kind of things that are really meant for really advanced setups. But basically, if I'm doing custom sounds, I'll go to sound levels and I'll go to sound. So like I make sure that I have all my sounds correct, and then I do all my sound levels correct, and then I also want to make sure that my light features are correct as well. And that should be everything we need, and we can put this locomotive back on the track.
I've got this thing powered up on the track. Let's listen to the new sounds and check out the effects. The thing with doing an all-encompassing tutorial for decoders with JMRI is that decoders change based on which manufacturer they are from. Now, with mobile decoders that don't have sound, it's not that much difference because of the NMRA and the standards that they have. But when you get into the sound and the extra features, that's where things really get proprietary and different. So it's really hard to do a video that isn't over an hour long on how to use JMRI to just program sound decoders, because they're all different. This is also, though, a reason that I really like soundtracks. You don't need any special hardware or anything like that to program them. They have very good documentation showing you how to program them. Just make sure you get the right one for your locomotive. But they are just fantastic to use in this way. You saw how easy it was and how almost self-explanatory it was to program this locomotive with the proper sounds. So I hope this video gives you a little bit of an explanation on doing sounds with JMRI. I know it's different from manufacturer to manufacturer, but I hope this helps out a bunch. Until next time, I'm Jimmy from the DIY and Digital. Stay safe, be kind, and happy railroading.